The Lost in Transition podcast is brought to you by LB Endurance. LB Endurance, turning you into a legit badass. Learn more today at lbendurance.com.
So the night before the Blue Ridge Relay, I go to the bathhouse and I come back and I see this huge shadow. I'm thinking like, oh shit, like that is the biggest bear I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't have a flashlight. And then all of a sudden the lady walks up and I go, can you shine your light over there? I think there's a bear over there. It's a wild pony.
Welcome to the Lost in Transition podcast. I'm your host, Chris Gerard, joined momentarily by Derek Tingle. And then Knoxville BeerRunner tonight, Peter Migun, stopping by the podcast. Fun chatting with him. We'll get to that interview in just a second here. Remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram. At Lost Transitions on Twitter and Instagram. And on Facebook, look for Lost in Transition Triathlon Podcast. You'll find us just fine there. Or just link from the website, losttransition.com. You can catch our entire show archives there. Subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, the TuneIn Radio app, and on YouTube. And without further ado, we'll listen to Peter Migun next on the Lost in Transition podcast. Peter Migun ran in high school and in college. Then he got a desk job and drank a lot of beer. After adding a few pounds, Peter traded in the sitting for running and the beer for, well, even better beer. Today he runs trails and documents his adventures with ales and trails on Instagram under the BeerRunner hashtag. Peter, thanks for joining us on Lost in Transition.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, so you are born and raised right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Ran for Bearden High School. I have spent more time than I care to admit on that track. In fact, I think my record is that was my longest run on a track. Derek's going to go nuts. 16 miles on that sucker.
Oh, God, Chris.
I'll pray for you.
I'll need it.
Kind of thing. You couldn't put that out in public, man.
I know, right? It's kind of embarrassing. But anyway, so you ran for Bearden. Did you run cross country, track,
I
both?
did. I ran cross country and track. I had two awesome coaches. One I still hang out with today. One that you will find at a lot of local breweries. If you looked at him, he would not look like he ran a day in his life. But back in the day, he ran a 1:59. But now all he does is drink beer, play blues. So yeah, it's a.
He's having a good second life going on right there.
I guess that's what you do when you retire. So.
Just for reference for anyone local here, what years did you run for Bearden?
2006 to 2010.
Oh, good Lord, you're young.
Wow.
I'm feeling really old right now.
You and me both, man.
Oh, that's hilarious. So you're in the local area, racing around here, getting some pretty good results as you went through high school and placing pretty highly. And then you went on to college and you ran on both the cross-country team and track and field team as well?
Yes. So I graduated from Bearden, and my degree is very specific. It's fire protection. And so I had not very many options to choose from.
About to say.
And so I had basically the choice of Eastern Kentucky University, Oklahoma State, or Maryland. And at the time, Oklahoma State was winning every cross-country nationals. And so trying to get them even somewhat interested in you is not very likely. I mean, their guys are running unreal times. And so I looked at Eastern Kentucky and Maryland, and Eastern Kentucky kind of caught my eye because, only 2.5 hours away, smaller school, there were some good runners, but not great runners. And so I was like, maybe there's a chance. I talked to the coach and he said, you can come in as a walk-on, but, if you really improve, there's a chance for you to potentially get a scholarship. And so I walked on as the number 9 runner. I did decent. I did well the first year. And then the next year, the recruiting really started to amp up. I mean, those guys are running unreal times right now. We had one runner, he just broke 28 minutes in the 10K on the track.
Oh.
Unreal. Soufiane Bouchiki, 27:46, I believe, And
God.
one of my roommates, Ole Hasselberg, he just ran the Olympic steeplechase. He broke 8:30 in the 3K steeplechase. And so it was one of those like, hey, small school,
Right.
decent talent, and then all of a sudden like, oh, hey, we're going to nationals. And it's like, well, there goes my shot at a scholarship. But
Right. But you got to meet a lot of cool people at least out of that.
it was so cool. I mean, we had people from Kenya, Europe, New Zealand, Australia. It was so cool to get. It was almost a culture shock. I moved 2 hours north,
Right.
and it's
And a culture shock in Eastern Kentucky,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
that's not what I was expecting.
No.
So it was.
So I have to go back to the your choice of major, because a lot of people who might be able to get a scholarship somewhere would kind of go looking for their sport first, perhaps. But you obviously knew already what you wanted to do, and that kind of limited the pool down a little bit. What made you say you got to go get that degree, and where did you want it to lead?
I think we got to go back further than that.
Even-
What is a fire protection degree, and then why did you?
There you go.
So-
Yeah, let's explain that.
So growing up, I wanted to be a firefighter, but my dad was like, let's look into fire protection engineering, and if you get the degree, you can either go into engineering or go into firefighting. But if you get a degree in firefighting, you're limited.
Right.
So why
Okay.
not try the engineering route, see if you like it, and then you have a backfall. And I went that route, and it's turned out. I really enjoy the job. I really enjoy the career path I've chosen. But it was at the time, I didn't. It was one of those. I was just going with my gut feeling.
Right.
And
Okay.
I went to do a college visit, and I met with the coach. I met with the current runners. It felt right. That's what I wanted, so that's what I went with, and everything worked out. So
Yeah.
See, he went the opposite way in college, where I went in having no damn clue what I wanted to do, and I changed majors like 3 times. Yeah, so good on you, man.
I appreciate it.
So that's interesting. It's my perception, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my perception often that with firefighting specifically, it can really vary. I mean, there are some big cities with full-time firefighters, union jobs, and decent pay, at least, decent middle-class pay. And then there are independent private fire companies, entry-level, maybe not even full-time, certainly not
Right.
union, and I've seen some entry-level pay for that. It's like, boy, McDonald's is looking awful good.
Well, and a lot of those small county positions, you are working your full-time job, and then you're working a ton of overtime, or you have another side gig, either working on
Right.
the ambulance or carpenter or whatever it takes. But we're fortunate enough in the area, we have ORNL and Y12, and those are huge government and TVA for that matter.
Right.
Those are huge government agencies that really practice and preach fire protection. And so we're fortunate enough that we live in such an awesome place that, the city is right here, and we have government agencies that have these opportunities. A lot of these places out west, if you want to work in this spot and you want to get to the closest city, you're driving an hour and a half. But the
Certainly.
fact that here we're driving 30 minutes away, it's so cool. Knoxville's such a cool place that
Right.
we're fortunate.
Well, and you're currently at ORNL, and I know this has nothing to do with triathlon or running, but I find it fascinating. So you're at Oak Ridge National Lab, which is not the nuclear weapons plant, right? That's a totally different thing. People think of Oak Ridge as that.
Right.
But
So we're the research side of the house.
Right.
We're the ones that we're trying to the next step in science. And so, I think roughly a year ago, we discovered a new element, the tennessine, and to me, that's awesome.
Wow.
That's a new element.
one more thing to memorize if you're going to do the whole thing.
Exactly. We have one of the world's fastest research computers, and
Yes.
it's cranking out absurd calculations per second. I mean, that's
Right.
it's way over my head at this point. I mean,
But you're there to make sure it doesn't overheat and catch on fire, for sure.
Yeah.
And, if high school chemistry taught me anything, is that science can often be flammable. So I'm sure they keep you busy.
Yeah, it is. So it's a cool place.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, back on track.
Yeah,
Let's talk about some running, and I'm sure he wants to talk about some beer, because I think he likes beer a lot. He brought a lot of beer here.
He brought a lot of beer. We are so well stocked in the studio right now.
Unfortunately, he's the only one here that drinks the beer, because you're not drinking beer. I don't drink beer. So he's got a lot.
We let him drink alone.
This interview might go on long enough that he gets really fun after a while.
Oh shit!
Well, I will describe everything I'm drinking, so we'll all have a good time.
There you go.
Fantastic.
Well, before we get into the running, what do you have poured right now?
Right now, I have the Alliance Kolsch. Alliance is outside of South Knoxville. Their little saying is active beer culture. So they wanted a brewing company, so something BC, something brewing company. And so they came up with Alliance because they wanted to match the active beer culture. And so with them, they really do a good job of, hey, why don't you go hit the trails? Why don't you go for a run? Why don't you do something? And when you're done, why don't you stop in and have a beer?
Catering to that crowd.
Exactly. And South Knoxville is such an awesome place for that, with the trails, with the river. I mean, it's a great place.
Well, it's exploded there. I was doing a long run recently through, the riverfront area right there, and I swear every building's a brewing company down there right now.
I mean,
it's just business is absolutely booming. Of course, like you mentioned, active beer culture, active brewing culture. You were not active for a while after college,
yes.
and still liked the beer, so it put on a few pounds. At what point did you decide? Gosh, I got to get back to what I was doing.
So I got out of college. I lived in an apartment. I got my current job, and I was sitting at my desk a lot, and that's a big difference from. When I was in college, not only was I running a lot, but I was biking to class, I was walking to class, I was doing all that. So right now, I mean, I was sitting at my desk, I was coming home, and I was, all these breweries started popping up all over Knoxville. And I'm a huge local guy. I love to support the local person. None of these brewing companies are really investor run. Most of them are, it's a mom and pop shop, and you're supporting their life. And so I was like, I want to try every single one of them. And so I would go around and I would, hey, let me try this one. Hey, let me try that one. Hey, let me try this one. And I was so burnt out at running at that point, because running 80 miles a week and going to class 21 hours and having a part-time job and studying and it burnt me out. And so the fact that I was finally, free, from that, 3:30 practice or 6 a.m. practice every day. And there's a ton of good beer. I was just drinking and sitting and drinking and sitting and drinking and sitting. And the fact that the weight added up, and I was, at some point I was like, I got to do something. I got to either get on the bike or I got to start running. I have to do something.
Where'd you get up to weight-wise?
Oh, man, after college. So when I graduated college, I'm 5'10", and I was, right after college, I was 130 at 5'10". I think my highest point, I got to 185.
Okay.
So in a matter of about 2.5 years... That is quite a bit
That's
of
a
weight.
big jump.
Yeah, no kidding. And
Yeah.
and for obviously podcast people can't see this, but for your build too, and like you say, when you mentioned where you started off, because there's a lot of people that could, that weight and height wouldn't be that bad of a combination, but that much gain in a couple of years is obviously some serious.
Well, and I'm not,
it's a lot of beers.
I'm not muscular. I'm not somebody who's
right.
super.
You got the
strong
skinny runner build, natural runner build.
Exactly. I mean,
Definitely.
I was a Division I college runner. I wasn't a shot putter, or
Right.
anything like that. So
very different.
So it adds up quick.
Yeah, definitely. And so when you put on the weight, and then you decided, okay, I got to do something about this. What got you into trail running? Did you just want something different from being just normal pounding on the pavement? Or
So I didn't want to compare apples to oranges. I knew if I could run trail, you could not compare trail running times to track times. And so I thought, you know what, let me try trail running out. And if I run a 5-mile trail race, there's no way you can compare that to an 8K
Right.
or anything like that. So I was like, let me do this. And probably 2016, I tried Nextera down at Imes, and it was one of those, like, I don't care how long it takes you. It was a half marathon. Just finish. I mean, I ended up walking probably about 25% of it on the uphill part. And
that's a tough half too.
It is.
That's
not
a really
easy.
tough half.
But the thing is, like, I look back and I did that, and nowadays I can, like, I'll tell my wife, hey, it's a Tuesday, I'm gonna go just run South Loop or whatever, and it's not quite a half marathon, but it follows pretty much the same course and I'll crank it out no problem now. I'll just
it just becomes the natural at that point.
Exactly.
That was like the second or third half I ever did was the KTC trail half out at South Knox.
That's a hard second or third.
It is. I was like, I've done a half marathon. I can go do a half marathon in the woods.
Right.
It'll be fine.
What's the difference? There'll be more shade.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is with the trail half, I mean, I've done the Knox half. I mean, the trail half is worlds harder. I mean,
certainly.
It's like equivalent of probably 17, 18 miles on road, easy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, in both time and just effort.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're running so much slower out there. Well, I was running so much slower out there because you're fighting terrain, you're fighting woods, you're fighting roots and rocks and jumping over shit. Yeah, it's crazy.
So, talking about some of the local trails here, there's a race, I believe, KTC Trotting Trails, 8 races for $88. Is that correct?
Yes, so that is probably one of the best deals in Knoxville. At the beginning of their series, you spend $88 and you get 8 different races, and they go all over East Tennessee within about an hour of Knoxville. I mean, you'll go out to Oak Ridge, you'll go up to Norris, you'll do all that, but for somebody that's really trying to get into trail running and, they might be struggling with money, this is the best option. I mean, they usually have a shorter option and a longer option. The longer option can range anywhere from 6 to 15-ish miles, believe, or the shorter option, which is normally like 4 to 8 or 9 options. So, if you're really looking to get into the trails, the trail scene, this I would highly recommend. It's no frill, whatever. I mean, you pay it, you get 1 t-shirt per season, so it's not like you're getting a t-shirt every
right.
race.
You're in it to race.
Right,
it's
exactly.
Really,
there might be 1 or 2 water stops, and at the end there's like bananas, oranges, and Black Horse Brewery beer at the end. Like there's
it's basically a self-supported race.
Exactly.
Right. And there's timing, and that's what you're paying for essentially.
And you can't be mad because it's like exactly what you're getting into.
Well, I'm looking at $88 and saying, as a triathlete, even a cheap triathlete, I'm saying I'm trying to remember the last race I paid for that. Triathlon at least that wasn't at least that to do 8 races.
I mean, most triathlons, if you pay a year in advance, it's still $150,
right? For longer stuff, for sure.
Exactly.
And I mean, the cool thing I like about that trail race series too is, of course, the same thing like with the Xterra scene is the family aspect of it. You're showing up, and it's going to be a lot of the same people at a lot of these same races, so it becomes a community. It's not just randomly showing up and trying to run as hard as you can. You're seeing your friends, you're hanging out, you're talking shit, you're doing everything that you want to have fun doing, and then you're racing.
Well, and that's exactly right. It's so funny because a lot of those trail local trail people that are doing all those races, you'll see them at the breweries like 2 weeks later. And so they kind of go hand in hand. And like I said, they have Black Horse beer at the end. And so a lot of times you get done and you're drinking beer and it's like, well, it's 10 o'clock. The soonest brewery opens up at 11. Like, let's go hit one of those when we're done. So
Nice. So you go from the KTC type series, but you also got into ultras.
So I'm getting close to ultras. I have done Ragnars. So I did an ultra Ragnar. So I did 30 miles in about 15 hours. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, I'm waitlisted on a 50K right outside Damascus, the Iron Mountain Trail Run. And
I've ridden there.
Have you?
I have.
I
rode there when I was really fat and out of shape, and I wanted to punch my buddy right in the nuts because he was like, "Oh, there's this awesome trail. It's Iron Mountain." And we even shuttled up the road from Damascus. We shuttled up to the top of the mountain.
Are you talking the Virginia Creeper Trail?
No. I'm talking Iron Mountain.
Okay.
We shuttled up the top and then hit the single track across the ridge. And even then, like not doing the big climb up, just single track across the ridge and then the huge descent back down into town. I wanted to punch him. Like there's a picture of me on Facebook. I'm like 240 pounds, fat, out of shape, miserable, walking my bike down this pitiful little rock garden. It's the most just depressing thing in the entire world.
About 3 weeks ago, we camped there, and I did a short little run on the Iron Mountain Trail, and then I started from Damascus and ran up to White Top. So that's
a hill. That's a big hill.
Little mountain.
There ain't much flat
big
in this
hill,
part of the
little
country.
mountain,
Yeah, all kind of even.
That's a great trail. I want to go back. I've never gone back.
I would highly recommend. That's one of the prettiest areas.
It's so beautiful.
They have a lot of ultras there. I was very surprised. Really? I believe it's Yeti. There's like the Yeti 50 miler and the Yeti 100 are run there. And that the Virginia Creeper Trail runs from Abington, Virginia, all the way to White Top, and that is 32-ish, 33-ish miles one way, and it's crushed limestone, just awesome. If you're wanting a PR, it's hilly. I'm not gonna lie, it is hilly, but it is gorgeous. You go over a bunch of trestles and.
It's really cool. We did that on the bikes too. I also did that when I was fat and out of shape, and we did like halfway, and I still didn't. Yeah, I've come a long way.
What's great for a lot of people, you can park at the bottom of the mountain. They will shuttle you up to the top, and then you can coast down about 4 to 6% grade downhill for about 17 miles. And so there's a lot of bikers per se, I'll put in air quotes,
right,
that coast down that.
Gravity.
Yes, gravity. But that is a really gorgeous trail, though. I mean, just to go out, even if you're not in cycling shape, you can go and, like you said, either shuttle run or even just park. And if from Damascus side, riding in that way, you're not a whole lot of elevation gain from that point either. I mean, even if you're not in great shape, you can still get a nice, decent ride as far as you want to go and then turn and go back. There's some cow crossings. You cross over like the gates where the cows come through and stuff. So yeah, it's a neat
bunch of Christmas tree farms.
Lots of Christmas tree farms. That's that's a lot of fun. So ultras, you're on the wait list for the one.
Yes, and another one I am looking at is the Highland. I believe it's called Highland State Park Ultra. It's a 50K.
Okay.
So I did the Blue Ridge Relay probably about 6 months ago, and we started in Highland, Virginia, and I'd never been to the Highland State Park, and that's one of the prettiest places I've ever been. About 3 weeks before that, I was running in Tremont. And a buddy and I were running, and all of a sudden we saw a little cub run up the tree.
Uh-oh.
And we're like looking around for Mama Bear. We're looking around. And so picture that. That was in my mind roughly 3 weeks before. So the night before the Blue Ridge Relay, I go to the bathhouse, and I come back, and I see this huge shadow. I'm thinking like, oh shit, like that's the biggest bear I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't have a flashlight. And then all of a sudden the lady walks up and I go, can you shine your light over there? I think there's a bear over there. It's a wild pony. And so I was like,
well, at least it was an animal.
That's true. But I'm like, well, that's not embarrassing.
That's way cooler than a bear.
Yeah.
You don't have to run terrified or play dead from a wild pony.
So it's so beautiful. There's wild ponies. And so I think that one opens up in September or November. So
cool. You going to try to do Barkley?
I would, yeah, that would be a cool one. But that's one of those, like, it's weightless. Are you talking about the real Barkley?
I'm talking about the real Barkley.
The real Barkley. I have yet to figure out. There's some secret password.
You gotta figure out how to get in first.
I would love to at least try it. But that's
if nothing else, you got the Fall Classic. I mean,
that's true. But that's one lap versus 5 of them.
Right.
It's insane either way.
that whole experience. Like, I'd like to just go and hang out and just watch these lunatics out there at the Barkley.
I'm assuming you've seen the Netflix series.
Oh yeah,
naturally.
Yeah,
okay.
and we've got a lot of friends that have done the Fall Classic, but yeah,
not the real password.
No, we've not had anybody that I know of that's done the real Barkley. Do you know?
Not that I know of. No, if anyone
out there has done the Barkley,
we'll talk to you.
We'll talk to you.
Come on over.
Send me a message, please. I would love to.
But yeah, that's a race that I would love to go and just spectate that.
Yeah.
Those guys are freaks of nature. Those aren't even humans anymore.
Well, I mean, just in case some people are pure triathletes or whatever and haven't heard of the Barkley Marathons, we got to talk about this a little bit just for the context. 5 laps in a state park here in Tennessee. I want to say the elevation gain is something like climbing Everest twice, something in that ridiculous nature.
Total, they said 7 or 8 times.
Yeah, just something in the multiple tens of thousands of feet of elevation.
Well, it also kind of depends on the route that they take that year, because it changes every year. The guy that puts the race on, his name's Lazarus. He basically just tries to figure out a way to almost kill people without actually killing people. So it's the hardest path you can find through some of the roughest trail in the area.
Well, and where he came up with it is what's that guy's name that shot?
Is it James Earl Ray?
Is that it? I can't remember.
Yeah,
that shot Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yeah,
that was in the prison.
Right. In Brushy Mountain
it's
State
around
Prison,
Brushy Mountain State Prison.
Well, he got in 50 something hours. He got 7 miles away, and he was like, I can run 100 miles in the amount of time that he did 7. So it was like, let me make a course roughly 100 miles when anybody knows it's closer to like 125, 130.
Right.
But there's no map. That's all the other good part about it.
Yeah, there's no map. There's orienteering involved. There's like checkpoints along the way where there's books and you're assigned a number and you have to rip out the page corresponding to your number. When you get back to camp, you have to hand the guy your big stack of papers and he decides whether or not you've got them all. There's a Netflix documentary like we were talking about earlier.
I would
so
watch
it.
Please.
It's a great watch.
And the last lap, if you and your partner come in, he makes both you go opposite
directions.
Yep, just to make it.
Well, in each lap you switch directions anyway. So So you've experienced it both ways.
But he doesn't want you pacing off someone. He wants it to be 3 a.m. in the morning and you finish off this last lap by yourself.
And it goes all day, all night until you're done.
Right.
Or until
dead.
Yeah.
Or run out of time. And I think it was a 60-hour cutoff roughly?
I think it's 60 hours.
Yeah, and as a consequence, there's been, I want to say 14 ever that have finished it. I could be wrong. It might be up a little bit higher than that now.
I can tell you the number.
People do not many.
People do not finish every year.
No. Well, and they've had people that have completed Western states, and they go there and they're like, yeah, there's no way I could finish that. So
it's basically an invitation only, and even then you have to figure out how to get an invitation.
Right. Well, and it's funny because every year he requests something different.
Right, yeah, your entry fee is...
You need a pair of socks because he's low on socks, or, hey, I'm running out of white T-shirts, bring me a white T-shirt.
Right, but you also have to take him a license plate. Like, if it's your first year doing it, you have to take him a license plate from whatever state you're from, and then whatever he requests, I think, is the other gig too. It's a crazy. All this is in the document.
Guy is unreal.
Yeah, we're giving away the whole documentary here. I'm thinking, what scene are we on now?
Yeah, it's that's something that you need to like at least watch the documentary, because it's complete level of lunacy that I couldn't imagine.
Lost in Transition sponsor LB Endurance has partnered with Xterra Wetsuits to offer you exclusive savings on their best gear. Use discount code CO-LB Endurance for 55% off the best-selling Vortex full wetsuit, shipping now in time for whatever your summer has in store. Code CO-LB Endurance will also unlock serious discounts, including Velocity Smoke Swim Goggles, just $12, regularly $29, Lava Pants, the secret weapon for a faster swim, just $99, regularly $250, and a 10-foot Cloud White sub package for just $479, marked down from $1,200. Check out the link in our show notes to visit Xterra and lock in these amazing savings today. LB Endurance is a proud sponsor of the Lost in Transition podcast. Triathlon, swimming, cycling, or running, head coach Lana Burrell will use her racing experience, coaching acumen, and education to craft the training experience that will challenge and inspire you. Check out lbendurance.com today to learn more about one-on-one coaching, clinics, classes, training camps, and consultations, so you too can become a legit endurance badass. So we're talking about other local trails that are not part of the Barkley Marathons. What other, we've mentioned Imes and South Knoxville, Virginia Creeper, obviously a couple hours away. What are some other trails? And is there like a favorite one that you have that no one else knows about that you would share? Or do you not want it to be overrun?
No, so there's one thing. So since Baker Creek has popped up, the amount of South Loop traffic has decreased a ton.
Oh, yeah.
And so, it will be such a beautiful day, and everybody will be at the downhill tracks doing that. That South Loop is dead. I mean, you won't pass very many people at all. But another trail I really, really like, that's not in the East Tennessee area, but it's in the north East Georgia, is Fort Yargo.
That's a great park.
And Winder. I think that's like a hidden treasure.
It really is.
That not a lot of people know about yet.
That's a great place. I did the Xterra there. That's the first time I had been there, was earlier this year. I did the Xterra.
Did you do the trail run or the
tri?
Okay, cool.
Yeah. It's April.
Yeah, they do a lot of they do the, I think it's like 4.1 and 8.8 mile trail race in October, and I think I'm really considering, because I'm fortunate enough I have family that live like there, and so it's like, yeah, I can see my family and run this really cool trail, and so I'm.
The only problem with that place is that you have to drive through Atlanta to get there. It's on the wrong side.
Not necessarily. We go towards Asheville and drop down.
Oh, drop down?
Yeah, and Google Maps may not like it, but
if you get stuck in traffic on 285, then there's no chance that it's not going to be quicker going anywhere else.
So it's a really cool trail, and it's not rocky or rooty or anything like that.
It's so fast.
Yes, and so I was running a trail race there last year, and I looked at my time, I was like, holy crap, like, this is unreal. This is nothing like South Knox, where I'm having to look down the entire time. So
I came off the bike blazing at that race. It's like the perfect hard pack. There's not a lot of roots and rocks and crap.
It's
you
like
can
hard
really
packed down clay.
Yeah.
And so
there's a little bit of spring to it. You can fly, and you can really get a rhythm too, because you're not having to really pay attention for rocks and roots.
There's a little bit of elevation gain, but it's not like you're cranking out,
Just enough to make it fun.
Exactly.
Yeah, the hills are the best part. The running surface is an interesting thing, though, because I can't do single track. I can't do anything I would consider running on single track because of the rocks and the roots, and I will trip over any possible thing that's there. But anything that's like double track, Oak Ridge's North Boundary.
Yes, that's a really good one.
I just did that Sunday. And I love the hills there. It's just really fun. It's hills that you wouldn't necessarily see on roads very often.
It's a great place to do hill repeats.
I won't repeat that. Once a round is enough.
KTC does one of those trot and trails there, and they go up that that steep section right there towards the back end, and
there's several of those.
Yeah, that will knock the wind out of you.
There's some good, and they're actually building a lot more single track out there since Clinch Valley Trail Alliance really started up, and have kind of taken over things. From what I understand, are taking over things like from Friends of Haw Ridge and stuff for the Oak Ridge scene. There's a lot of plans, from what I understand, that are in the works for that area out there. There's a couple of new trails that they've just put in right across Wisconsin. When you go back in on the single track there, they V'd it off, and there's 2 new trails that climb up to the top, and I mean, it's a really nice trail. So
oh yeah, definitely.
You don't have to do just gravel out there. A lot of people just think it's just a gravel road.
Because a lot of people park in that parking lot 3 miles down, 3 miles back at 6 miles. And it is nice. It is. But a lot of people don't look left or right.
I remember the first time I went out there, if you're local on the triathlon scene, then you know Steve Bartow, and you know of the term of getting Bartowed. And that day, he's like, hey, you need to come run North Boundary with me. I'd never been out there. That was the first time I'd been. It was 2 or 3 years ago. And so we parked at the far end, not the guard shack end, the other end, and ran in. And he was like, oh, we'll just run. It'll be like 12 miles. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I didn't realize what the elevation
what the 12
was
miles
out there.
were.
And then we get back and we hit the split and we're heading back towards the car. And he's like, all right, there's just one more bridge. There's just one more bridge. There's just one more bridge. And there's like 3. But he forgot that there was 3 bridges. And he just kept saying, oh, this is the last bridge. And if I could have lifted my arm to punch him, I probably would have that day. Because oh man. But that was the first time I really got Bartowed on the run.
So this is the second story you've told in the last 20 minutes of being a trusting soul and getting completely taken advantage of. Is this why you hate people, Derek?
Yeah, it's one of many reasons. I'm just a bitter, jaded soul.
Are you a little less naive now, at least?
Years and years of retail and everything else. I'm just a bitter shell of a human.
So if anybody tells you you're going on a 6 mile run in your head, you at least make it 8, or
especially if it's Steve Bartow.
Oh, okay.
You got to add at least 10 to 20% to whatever he tells you in length, and if he tells you it's flat, it's not flat. It's not flat.
It's what's known as Tennessee flat. We do love our hills around here. So you've obviously combined you started the Instagram hashtag and your Instagram handle even is at BeerRunner. At what point, like you say, a lot of people in this group of mountain bikers, trail runners, you name it, love a good local beer. What made you decide that was going to be your thing and your identity?
So in a lot of the running community, they would be like, oh man, you really like beer. And a lot of the beer community would be like, man, that's unreal that you run that much. I was like, so I'm like, I don't fit in with anybody. But it's I don't know. It's just both groups of people you meet. You won't meet any better group of people. You go to the beer community and you walk up and you see someone that you know there, and they'll immediately hug you like, they've known you your whole life. Or if you go to the running community, hey, you and your best friend are sprinting out that last 400 and you cross at the same time and you end up hugging each other because that was a killer 15-mile race. That's awesome too. And so they're both just awesome people, awesome communities. Everyone means well. Everyone's there to support each other. A lot of breweries you go into and you get done and they're like, where should I go next? And they go, hey, why don't you go down to our neighbor who's brewing this? And it's like, that's a terrible business model. Like, what business is like, yeah, just quit buying my product and go buy my neighbor's? And then the running community is just, it's unreal. I mean, in the Knoxville area, it's such a cool area. There's so many cool trails. There's so many cool races. There's so many great people. So many great athletes. A lot of the stuff I didn't even realize, there's a lot of people running some really fast times.
Oh, it's incredible.
So, most of the people think, out west is where you run your fast times. And I was like, look at our times here. I mean, there's a lot of people running some fast times.
There really are. And you got to wonder, too, if a lot of it's just because we're so used to training at elevation or on elevation.
On elevation, yeah,
not
not at,
but
yeah.
on elevation that, you get onto a decently flat course and we turn into rocket ships.
Yeah, that's always a good, it's when I've gone and done something flatter, it's just kind of amazing, really, that this would be normal if I lived here.
Yeah.
It's always that nice little extra benefit.
Well, and we have the humidity too. Which
I
like
hate the
a lot of
humidity.
people.
The humidity is the worst.
You go out west and it's like 70 degrees. It's like, man, it feels great out here. And
I know.
home and
Well, I'm wearing my Blue Angels 10K shirt right now. I did that in March, and it was 80 degrees out there in the desert, and at 9 a.m. And I thought, oh, gee, because it was like March 1st or something like that, and I thought, boy, 80 degrees, I'm gonna suffer. I mean, it's just a 10K, but still, And it was the almost awesome 80 degrees I've ever been in. It's just like perfect running weather, and it was so flat. It was amazing. Absolutely loved it out there.
I'm going to get my taste of flat running later this year. I'm doing that 70.3 at Daytona.
Oh,
it's all on the racetrack.
There
on the
you go.
infield. It's like 4 laps. It'll be right down here. You should come do it. It's 4 laps on the run, Chris.
the biggest elevation is hopping out of the van.
Exactly.
Well, and
The
depending
bike course has 600 feet of climbing. Over 56 miles.
more if you go out up higher on the turn, I guess. Or is it just the runs on the track?
The runs are just all on the infield track.
Oh.
You don't even get
The
to
bike's
high
not on the
bank.
track?
You get one little loop around the track.
I'm not doing it unless I can bike around the track for 56
Well, you
miles.
Chris. You can't get fast enough to pull yourself up to the top of that track.
No, watch me.
You fall down.
Challenge accepted.
And he's like, challenge considered, challenge accepted.
Oh, good gracious. So we've got to ask, obviously, you run, you drink beer. Have you done a beer mile?
Yes.
Okay,
have.
thank goodness.
Yeah,
I was going to expose you otherwise. It's a fraud.
no, we have, and to be completely honest, it was probably the worst 10 minutes of my life.
You love both and can't combine them simultaneously.
It is hard. Every year at the end of track and field, my coach will probably have a heart attack hearing this, but we would always have one at the end of every track season, and it was always, we follow the rules. It has to be 5.2% alcohol. It has to be, you can't shotgun it. You actually have to chug it, and it's just, it's crazy how some of those guys, go anywhere under 6 minutes. Even
Right.
the world record holder, 4:32, 4:38, something like that.
Ugh.
On just 4 beers, 1 mile. I mean, you think about it. That's chugging.
I can't.
I'm trying to think. Even if it was water, plain straight up water, I couldn't. I mean, that's just the number of ounces. I mean, that's just enough. That'd make me sick. Forget beer.
Yeah, and if you watch them, they are just, they're athletes. I mean, some of them live and train. Like, that's how they make their living.
Wow.
It's just like trying to drink and sprint like that.
So I was actually talking about it because I didn't realize exactly what you were. Like, Chris sent me the show notes, and like I actually thought when you came in that you were a beer miler. And I was like, how interesting is this going to be? Like, I mean, what are we going to talk about? How do you train? Oh, I drink beer and I run a little bit, and then I drink more beer and then I run a little bit.
We're going to get angry emails from
don't
beer
care.
runners now. I know you don't.
I don't
That's
care.
Derek at losttransition.com.
But I was like, I mean, really, how interesting could that? But now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, going, okay, so really, how do you train to be a really competitive beer miler?
Well, and
like, do you have beer intervals?
So,
and
so I don't know if you got Nick Simmons. Have you heard? He got, I want to say, 3rd in the Olympics at the 800. He even tried the beer mile, and he didn't get anywhere near the top 5. And so you're telling me somebody who ran a 142 is struggling to keep up with these guys chugging beer and running. So it's not like,
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
it's not, somebody who's like, I am fast. It's not someone who's like, I can chug beer fast.
Well, if you're running a 4:32, you are fast. Either way.
But a lot of it is like guys who ran in college and are, roughly a 3:48 to 3:46 1500, which is fast. Like,
Right.
Don't get me wrong,
But not world class.
But not
You're not making your
world-class.
living doing it. at
Exactly,
that.
but these guys are like, what can I do to make a living being pretty good, but not
Right.
like Olympic fast? I can drink a beer in 8 seconds, so how can I combine the two together?
Right.
Next thing I know, I'm sponsored. So
I'd like to see what a training peaks looks like for a beer miler.
Right. And is there a spot on there to track?
Is there somewhere
besides
on-
just in the notes or
it's
something
like
like that?
Strava and Untapped combined.
There you go. It's a new business model right there.
Love it.
Oh, that's hilarious. So you're mentioning, you support a lot of the local breweries. Are you looking for sponsors right now for your little endeavor here?
I would love a beer sponsor if someone is willing. I'm not looking to make a living. I'm looking for free beer. So
That is a good.
I have,
Now we
front.
know why he's really here. He doesn't want to talk to us. He just wants to try to get somebody to give him free beer.
That's
can't I do both?
No, you can do both.
oh, that's
So
great.
I don't know. There's a lot of cool places out there, and I just, I've traveled a lot. I've tried a lot of beer, and a lot of places they're $7-8 a pint, but then I come back home and it's $4.50 for a pint, and the beer's way better here. I don't know what it is, if it's the water.
Something in the water.
Yes, so and the fact that Knoxville has so many cool trails too, and it's an awesome place to live, and I think there's a lot of people that take it for granted, and I just go outside. There's the river, there's the trails, there's
It's probably the river water.
Probably you peeing in the river water.
I did pee in the river water several times. Every time I'm in the river, I pee in the river water, in fact.
Knoxville draws their drinking supply from that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Nutrition. But I'm picturing like a custom running kit that you need, for this, almost to get the sponsorship on it. I'm trying to think what kind of logo you could use for that.
I just think he needs to run in lederhosen.
Oh, there you go.
Like, for
whatever
sure.
it takes.
Whatever it takes.
I'm a team player at that point. So
All right. So say someone wants to give you free beer, whether as a sponsor or just as a nice gesture. Where can they get in touch with you? You're at BeerRunner on Instagram.
Yes.
Anywhere else they can find you?
that's the best place to find me. Instagram world, that's the best place. That's where they can find me, where I'm running South Loop or drinking at Trailhead, or otherwise known as the center of the universe. That's the best place.
Perfect. At BeerRunner on Instagram. We'll go ahead and link that up in the show notes and throw some pictures up there as well. Peter Migun, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast, and lots of happy trail running and beer drinking in your future, I hope.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Our thanks again to Peter Migun, and follow him on Instagram. We're going to take a couple weeks off here as I'm doing my first 140.6 here at Michigan Titanium on August 19th. And feel free to browse the website and listen to the shows back in archive. This is show number 77, so we've got a large selection to choose from. But I'm going to take a couple weeks off of production here and focused on racing and recovery. We'll talk to you again after Michigan Titanium, where hopefully all my transitions are smooth.